I stood in the elegant lobby of Sapphire Bay Resort, luggage in hand, watching my stepsister Olivia twirl dramatically for my father and stepmother. "Daddy, this place is absolutely perfect. I can't believe we're staying here for a whole week." Her voice echoed off the vaulted ceilings, drawing annoyed glances from other guests checking in. Patricia, my stepmother of 3 years, nodded in agreement, her manicured hand resting possessively on my father's arm. "Robert, you've outdone yourself this time. This is exactly the kind of place the Wilson Martinez family should be vacationing." I bit my tongue, fighting the urge to remind them that my last name was just Martinez. I'd never adopted the Wilson hyphenation after Dad remarried, something Patricia reminded me of constantly, as if my name alone was an act of rebellion. The receptionist smiled politely, typing rapidly as my father handed over his credit card with a flourish. 4 nights. In our Ocean View suite, she confirmed. For 4 guests? 3, Patricia corrected quickly, not even glancing in my direction. Just the 3 of us in the suite. I felt my face flush as the receptionist's eyes darted to me, then back to her computer screen. This wasn't part of the plan, I'd been told. For months, I'd been hearing about our big family vacation to celebrate Dad's 50th birthday. The first real vacation we'd taken since Mom died 5 years ago. I'd even used precious vacation days from my marketing job in Tampa, days I'd been saving for a professional development conference. "I'm sorry, there must be some confusion," I said, stepping forward. "I was told I'd be staying in the suite as well." My father at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, shuffling, slightly as Patricia cut in. "Jessica, we discussed this. The suite only has 2 bedrooms. Olivia needs her privacy, and your father and I certainly need ours." "We never discussed this," I replied, keeping my voice level despite the humiliation burning through me. "Where exactly am I supposed to stay?" Patricia shrugged, the gesture dismissive. "The resort is fully booked for the summer season. We thought you could make other arrangements. Perhaps one of those budget hotels in town? Or your car has those reclining seats, doesn't it?" The receptionist's eyes widened, her professional mask slipping for just a moment. My father wouldn't meet my eyes, suddenly fascinated with the resort's marble flooring. Olivia smirked, examining her freshly manicured nails. "My car?" I repeated, certain I'd misheard. "You expect me to sleep in my car for 4 nights after driving 3 hours to be here?" "Don't be so dramatic, Jessica," Patricia sighed. "This is exactly the kind of attitude that makes family gatherings so difficult. Always making everything about you." Before I could respond, a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit approached our group. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, his voice calm but authoritative. His name tag read, Marcus Chen, Operations Manager. Patricia instantly transformed, her irritated expression morphing into a charming smile. "Oh, everything's fine. Just a small family misunderstanding." Marcus looked unconvinced, his gaze moving to me. "If there's a problem with your reservation, I'd be happy to assist." I opened my mouth, then closed it. What could I possibly say? That my own family had deliberately excluded me from the room booking and expected me to sleep in my car. The humiliation was overwhelming. "It seems I don't actually have a place to stay," I finally managed, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll just figure something out." Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Recognition, perhaps, though I was certain we'd never met. "Ms. Martinez?" he asked, surprising me with the use of my last name. "Jessica Martinez?" I nodded, confused by the sudden change in his demeanor. "If you'll excuse us for a moment," he said to my family before gently guiding me a few steps away. "Ms. Martinez, we've been expecting you. In fact, there's been a special arrangement made for your stay." Now I was truly confused. "I think there's been a mistake. I don't have any special arrangement." Marcus smiled. "No mistake. If you'll follow me, I can show you to your accommodation while your family completes their check-in." Too bewildered, To argue, I followed Marcus across the lobby, feeling my family's eyes boring into my back. He led me to a private elevator that required a keycard to access. "I'm sorry, but I really don't understand what's happening," I said as the elevator doors closed behind us. "Ms. Martinez, am I correct in understanding that you're Robert Martinez's daughter, the founder of Martinez Hospitality Group?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, but—" "Then there's no confusion," Marcus said as the elevator ascended smoothly. "Your accommodation has been arranged according to protocol." The elevator opened directly into a stunning penthouse suite, with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the turquoise waters of the Gulf. Fresh flowers adorned every surface, and a welcome basket filled with my favorite snacks sat on the dining table. "This is the owner's penthouse," Marcus explained, watching my reaction with a hint of amusement. "Reserved for members of the Martinez family whenever they visit any Martinez Hospitality Group property." I stared at him, the pieces slowly clicking into place. "Martinez Hospitality Group owns Sapphire Bay Resort?" "For the past 3 years," Marcus confirmed. "Your father completed the acquisition just before his remarriage. Didn't he tell you?" Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Dad had purchased an entire resort, one of the most exclusive properties on Florida's Gulf Coast, and never mentioned it to me. Not once. Despite my marketing degree, despite my lifelong interest in the hospitality industry, despite all those childhood conversations about someday working together in his business. "No," I said softly. "He didn't tell me." Marcus looked genuinely surprised. "That's unexpected, especially considering your background in hospitality marketing. Most of the executive team assumed you'd be joining the company after gaining some external experience." I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. "The executive team knows more about my father's plans for me than I do, apparently." Marcus seemed to realize he'd stepped into something complicated. "I apologize if I've overstepped. Regardless of the circumstances, the penthouse is prepared for your stay. As a Martinez, you have full access to all resort amenities and services. My direct line is programmed into the room phone if you need anything at all." After Marcus left, I wandered through the luxurious space trying to process this new information. The penthouse was larger than my entire apartment in Tampa, with a private terrace, 2 bedrooms, a fully stocked kitchen, and even a small office. On the desk, I noticed a folder embossed with the Sapphire Bay Resort logo. Inside were financial reports, marketing plans, and operational overviews for the resort. A sticky note in unfamiliar handwriting read, "For Ms. Martinez's review." Someone had expected me to take an interest in the business operations, someone who clearly wasn't my father. I sank onto the plush sofa, my mind racing. For 3 years, Dad had owned this resort, part of a larger hospitality group bearing our family name. For 3 years, he'd kept me completely in the dark, while apparently the entire executive team expected me to eventually join the company. All while Patricia and Olivia made me feel like an unwelcome addition to their family, someone to be tolerated rather than included. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Where did you go? Patricia wants to head to the restaurant for lunch." I stared at the message, anger and hurt crystallizing into something harder, colder. 3 years of watching Patricia and Olivia gradually isolate my father from me, of having my suggestions dismissed and my presence minimized, of being made to feel like an inconvenience in my own family. And now, the ultimate humiliation, being told to sleep in my car at a resort my father secretly owned. Something shifted inside me. No more accommodating their cruelty. No more pretending their behavior was acceptable. No more diminishing myself to make Patricia comfortable. I texted back, "Can't make lunch. I have a meeting with Marcus Chen to discuss the resort's marketing strategy. Enjoy your meal." I could almost picture Patricia's face when she read that message, when she realized I knew about Dad's ownership of the resort. It was a small victory, but it felt significant. The first step toward reclaiming my place in my own family and my father's business. My phone immediately rang, Dad calling. I let it go to voicemail, then turned my phone off completely. For once, I wouldn't be available at their convenience. For once, they could wait. I opened the folder on the desk and began reading through the reports, losing myself in financial projections and occupancy rates. I'd always had a head for business, something my mother had encouraged and my father had once taken pride in. The resort was performing well, but I could already see opportunities for improvement in their marketing approach, particularly in their social media strategy and local partnerships. A knock at the door interrupted my analysis. I opened it to find a young woman in a resort uniform, her familiar face triggering a flash of recognition. "Sophia?" I gasped. "Sophia Rodriguez?" Her professional smile blossomed into genuine delight. "Jess? I thought it might be you when I saw the name Martinez on the VIP arrival list. It's been years." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Sophia had been our neighbor growing up, her family living next door until we were both in high school. After my mother died, Sophia was one of the few people who didn't treat me differently, who still invited me over for movie nights and forced me out of the house when grief threatened to swallow me whole. "I had no idea you worked here," I said, ushering her inside. "3 years now," she replied. "I'm the events coordinator. Your father hired me shortly after acquiring the property, but he asked me not to mention the connection if we ever spoke." She frowned slightly. "I always thought that was strange, but you were respecting his wishes," I finished for her. "I understand. I just found out about his ownership myself. About 10 minutes ago, actually." Sophia's eyes widened. "You didn't know? But I thought, with your marketing background, everyone assumed. Everyone but me, apparently," I said, my voice sharper than intended. "Sorry, it's just been a strange day. My stepmother and stepsister informed me I wasn't included in their suite reservation and suggested I sleep in my car." "They what?" Sophia's outrage was immediate and validating. "That's awful, Jess. And at your father's own resort." "Which they may not know he owns," I pointed out, though the possibility that they did know made the suggestion even more cruel. Sophia shook her head. "Actually, I've coordinated several events for Patricia. She's very aware of the ownership situation. She never misses an opportunity to mention being married to the owner when making special requests." That revelation landed like a punch to the gut. Patricia knew. She had known all along, and still suggested I sleep in my car at my father's own resort. The calculated humiliation was breathtaking. "I came up to deliver these," Sophia said, handing me a small stack of cards. "Your access passes for the exclusive areas of the resort, the spa, the executive lounge, the private beach. As a Martinez, you have all access privileges." I took the cards, an idea forming. "Sophia, how would you feel about helping me with something? It might be a little unconventional." She grinned, the same mischievous expression I remembered from our childhood adventures. "For you? Absolutely. What did you have in mind?" Over the next hour, Sophia helped me formulate a plan, not for revenge exactly, but for reclamation of my dignity, my place in my father's life, and potentially my future in the family business. First, she connected me with Leo Kim, the resort's financial advisor who had apparently been trying to reach me for months, unaware that my father had never informed me of my theoretical position within the company. "Ms. Martinez, I'm delighted to finally speak with you," Leo said when we met in the executive lounge, his genuine enthusiasm confirming that my exclusion had been deliberate. I've prepared several scenarios for your review regarding your potential role within Martinez Hospitality Group. As we discussed the business, I discovered that my father had actually named me in various corporate documents as a future executive, while simultaneously keeping me completely unaware of these plans. Leo seemed confused by my surprise, but quickly adapted, walking me through the current financial structure and the expansion plans that had been developed with my eventual involvement in mind. "There's a board meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning," Leo mentioned casually. "Your father typically attends when he's on property, along with the executive team. As a named future executive, you're entitled to attend as well." "What time?" I asked, already knowing I'd be there. 9 a.m. in the executive conference room. I can have the quarterly reports sent to your suite this evening if you'd like to. Review them beforehand. By late afternoon, I had spoken with not only Leo and Sophia, but also several department heads who had all been operating under the assumption that I was being groomed to take an executive position. Each conversation revealed more about the disconnect between what my father had apparently planned for my future and what he had actually communicated to me. I was sitting on my private terrace, watching the sunset while making notes on the marketing reports, when my father finally appeared. The concierge escorted him out onto the terrace, looking somewhat uncomfortable. Clearly, Dad had pulled rank to gain access to my suite. "Jessica," he said, his voice a mixture of confusion and irritation. "What is going on? Why haven't you been answering your phone? And how did you end up in the owner's penthouse?" I set my notes aside, taking a moment to appreciate the irony of his indignation. "Hello, Dad. Beautiful sunset, isn't it? You can see why this property was a good acquisition for Martinez Hospitality Group." He had the grace to look momentarily abashed but recovered quickly. "I was going to tell you about that." "When?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "It's been 3 years, Dad. 3 years of watching Patricia and Olivia take center stage in your life while I've been increasingly sidelined. 3 years of having my marketing suggestions dismissed while apparently your entire executive team has been preparing for me to join the company." "It's complicated, Jessica," he said, sinking into the chair across from me. "Patricia felt—" "I don't care what Patricia felt," I interrupted, surprising both of us with my firmness. "I care about what you did, or didn't do. You purchased an entire hospitality group, named it after our family, and never told me. You apparently designated me as a future executive without ever discussing it with me. And today, you stood silent while your wife suggested I sleep in my car at your own resort." "She what?" Dad looked genuinely shocked. "I didn't hear her say that." "Of course you didn't," I said sadly. "You haven't really heard anything in the past 3 years. You've been so busy trying to make your new family happy that you stopped seeing what was happening right in front of you." Dad seemed at a loss for words, looking suddenly older than his 50 years. For a moment, I glimpsed the grief-stricken man who had struggled after Mom died, the father who had gradually disappeared into Patricia's carefully constructed new family narrative. "I'm attending the board meeting tomorrow morning," I said, changing direction. "Leo Kim briefed me on the financials this afternoon, and I've been reviewing the marketing strategy. I have some ideas that could significantly boost the resort's social media presence among the demographic they're struggling to reach." "You... what?" Dad looked completely blindsided. "You spoke with Leo?" "And Sophia Rodriguez, who you hired, without mentioning you knew her family. And Marcus Chen, who assumed I knew about your ownership. And half the executive team, all of whom thought I was being prepared to join the company." I leaned forward. "The question is, Dad, what did you actually want? Did you really see me as part of this business? Or was that just something you told the executives while allowing Patricia to push me further away from you?" The silence stretched between us, filled with 3 years of unspoken truths and missed opportunities. Finally, Dad sighed heavily. "I did want you involved, Jess. Your mother and I always talked about having a family business you could be part of someday. After she died, and after I met Patricia. He trailed off, seeming to realize for the first time how weak his justification sounded. I convinced myself I was protecting you, giving you space to build your own career without pressure. But I can see now that I was really just avoiding conflict with Patricia. She knew, Dad, I said quietly, about your ownership of the resort. She knew when she suggested I sleep in my car. That wasn't a casual slight. It was a deliberate humiliation. Dad's expression darkened. I'll speak with her. No, I shook my head. That's not enough anymore. I don't need you to speak with her. I need you to decide what you actually want, for yourself, for the business, and for our relationship. Because I've spent today discovering that there's a place for me in Martinez Hospitality Group if I want it. And I might want it, Dad, but not if it means continuing to be treated like an unwelcome addition to your real family. Dad looked stricken. You are my real family, Jessica. My only blood family. Then start acting like it, I said, standing up. I'll see you at the board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't be late. After my father left, I stood at the railing, watching the last colors of sunset fade over the Gulf. For the first time in years, I felt a clarity of purpose, a reclamation of space that had been gradually eroded. Whatever happened tomorrow, I had taken the first step toward a different future, one where I refused to be diminished or erased, even by those closest to me. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Staff dinner in the employee lounge in 20. Want to meet the real heart of Sapphire Bay? I smiled, typing back an immediate yes. The executive team might run the resort on paper, but I knew from my marketing research that it was the frontline staff who created the guest experience that kept people coming back. If I was potentially going to be part of this business, I needed to understand it from every angle. As I changed for dinner, I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Something fundamental had shifted during this strange, revelatory day. The meek daughter who tiptoed around Patricia's feelings, who accepted being sidelined in her own family, was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone unwilling to be made small for others' comfort. I thought of my mother, her quiet, strength and business acumen, how she had always encouraged me to claim my space in the world. You belong wherever you decide to stand, Jess, she used to say. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. For the first time in 5 years, I felt like I was truly honoring her memory, not by grieving, but by becoming the daughter she had raised me to be. Someone who knew her worth and refused to apologize for it. Tomorrow would bring confrontation with Patricia and Olivia, a board meeting where I would need to prove my competence, and undoubtedly more revelations about the family business I was just discovering. But tonight, I would meet the staff, the people who made Sapphire Bay Resort function day to day. I would listen and learn, building alliances and understanding the operation from the ground up. They had made me sleep in my car, or tried to. Instead, they had inadvertently opened the door to a future I hadn't known existed. Whatever happened next, I would face it standing firmly in my own power, no longer willing to be written out of my own family story. The employee lounge at Sapphire Bay Resort was a stark contrast to the opulent guest areas, functional rather than luxurious, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in staff schedules and safety notices. But what it lacked in elegance, it made up for in warmth. Laughter echoed through the space as I entered behind Sophia, conversations momentarily pausing as curious eyes turned toward me. Everyone, Sophia announced, this is Jessica Martinez. I watched recognition dawn on several faces as the last name registered. Martinez, the name on their paychecks, the family that owned the resort. A young man with a name tag reading Diego Housekeeping Supervisor was the first to approach. The mysterious Martinez daughter, he said with a friendly smile, extending his hand. We were starting to think you didn't exist. Until about 6 hours ago, I didn't know I was the Martinez daughter, at least not in relation to this resort, I admitted, accepting his handshake. Diego's eyebrows shot up. Wait, you didn't know your family owned the place? It's been an educational day, I said dryly. Soon I was seated at a large table with what Sophia called the Sunset Crew, the core staff who had been with the resort since its acquisition by my father. Over plates of staff meal, far better than typical cafeteria fare, they shared insights about the resort operations that would never appear in the executive reports I'd reviewed earlier. The East Wing rooms need renovation, explained Maria, the head of housekeeping. The bathrooms are outdated and we're constantly dealing with plumbing issues. The executives keep postponing it because occupancy is high, but it's creating unnecessary work for my team. Luis, who managed the beach cabanas, chimed in. And the booking system for beach amenities crashes at least once a week. IT keeps patching it, but we need a complete overhaul. The local partnership program has been neglected too, added Tanya from the concierge desk. We could be offering guests exclusive experiences with area businesses, but no one's been managing those relationships since Amanda left last year. I took mental notes, asking questions and absorbing their frontline perspectives. They spoke candidly, seemingly unconcerned that they were discussing operational flaws with the owner's daughter. There was something refreshing about their honesty, after years of carefully navigating Patricia's sensitivities. So, what's your story? Diego finally asked, voicing what everyone seemed curious about. How does the owner's daughter not know about the family business? I hesitated, unsure how much to share with people who were essentially strangers, despite their warm welcome. Sophia sensed my discomfort and intervened. Jess's mom passed away a few years ago, she explained. Her dad remarried, and things got complicated. Complicated is an understatement, I said with a rueful smile. My stepmother and stepsister suggested I sleep in my car for this vacation because there wasn't room for me in their suite. Meanwhile, the executive team apparently thinks I'm being groomed to join the company. Murmurs of disbelief circulated around the table. Tanya shook her head. Your stepmother knows perfectly well who owns this resort. She mentions it every time she wants special treatment. Just last month, she demanded we rearrange the entire spa schedule because she wanted a particular therapist. She also tried to fire Joaquin from the beach bar because he didn't recognize her, Luis added. Marcus had to intervene. Each anecdote built a clearer picture of Patricia's behavior when I wasn't present, using my father's ownership to inflate her own importance, demanding special treatment, treating staff dismissively. It aligned perfectly with how she treated me, but hearing that it extended to others made it somehow worse. What are you going to do? Sophia asked. Now that you know? It was the question I'd been asking myself all day. What did I want from this revelation? Revenge against Patricia? A role in the family business? Simply acknowledgement from my father? First, I'm attending the board meeting tomorrow morning, I said. I need to understand the business better before making any decisions. But I'm not letting Patricia dictate my relationship with my father or my potential place in this company anymore. Diego raised his water glass. To standing your ground, he toasted, and the others joined in with enthusiastic approval. By the time I returned to the penthouse, it was after midnight. I checked my phone to find multiple missed calls and messages from Dad, Patricia, and even Olivia. I ignored them all, focusing instead on preparing for tomorrow's meeting. I reviewed the quarterly reports Leo had sent over, made notes on the marketing strategy, and created a simple presentation addressing the issues the staff had highlighted. Sleep eluded me as my mind raced with all I'd learned and all that might happen tomorrow. Around 5 a.m., I gave up trying and decided to watch the sunrise from the beach. I changed into casual clothes and took the service elevator to avoid any potential early morning encounters with my family. The beach was deserted except for a few workers setting up loungers for the day. The horizon was just beginning to lighten, the sky shifting from inky blackness to deep blue. I removed my sandals and walked along the shoreline, feeling the cool water lap at my feet. "Early riser?" The voice startled me. Marcus Chen stood a few feet away, dressed in running clothes, his normally perfectly styled hair slightly tousled by the sea breeze. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted. "Too much to process." He nodded in understanding. "I often come here before sunrise when I need to think. Something about the transition from darkness to light helps clarify things." We stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching as the first golden rays broke across the water. "I hear you're attending the board meeting this morning," Marcus said finally. "Word travels fast." "It's a small world, the resort staff. Not much happens without everyone knowing." He glanced at me. "Your father called an emergency executive dinner last night after speaking with you. Quite a flurry of activity for someone who allegedly wasn't aware of her connection to the company." I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. "What did he say?" "That you would be joining us at this morning's meeting as a potential future executive, that we should prepare to brief you on all aspects of operations." Marcus hesitated. "And that your stepmother and stepsister would not be involved in any business discussions during their stay." That last bit surprised me. Had Dad actually established a boundary with Patricia? It seemed out of character for the man who had spent 3 years avoiding conflict with his new wife, even at the expense of his relationship with me. "Do you think I belong there?" I asked suddenly. "At the meeting? I've spent exactly 1 day learning about a business everyone seems to think I should have known about all along." Marcus considered the question carefully. "What I think is that you have more insight into this resort after 1 day of asking questions than many executives gain in years of reading reports. You listened to the staff. You identified operational issues that have been ignored. You're asking the right questions." He smiled slightly. "The hospitality business isn't just about luxury amenities and profit margins. It's about people, the guests and the staff. From what I've seen, you understand that intuitively." His confidence was unexpectedly bolstering. "Thank you," I said sincerely. As the sun rose fully over the horizon, casting long golden rays across the sand, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever happened at the meeting, I would face it with the clarity gained during this strange twilight period of my life. The transition from being the daughter who accepted exclusion to the woman who claimed her rightful place. "I should get ready," I said, turning back toward the resort. "Ms. Martinez," Marcus called after me. When I turned, he added, "Your mother would be proud." The comment caught me off guard. "You knew my mother?" Elizabeth Martinez was on the board of the hotel management program where I earned my degree. She was brilliant, insightful, and never afraid to challenge conventional thinking. His expression softened with the memory. "When your father acquired this property, I recognized the name immediately. Elizabeth had mentioned her daughter was interested in hospitality marketing. I always assumed that was why he bought the resort, to create a legacy for you." The revelation that my mother had shaped the career of the man now running my father's resort felt like a circle completing itself. She had been gone for 5 years, but her influence remained, touching parts of my life I hadn't even known existed until yesterday. "Thank you for telling me that," I said, my voice thick with emotion. Back in the penthouse, I showered and dressed carefully in the one business outfit I'd packed, a navy sheath dress and blazer I'd brought in case Dad wanted to visit any upscale restaurants during our vacation. I arranged my hair in a sleek bun and applied minimal makeup, wanting to project professionalism rather than trying to impress. At 8:45 a.m., I took the elevator to the executive floor, presentation materials in hand. The conference room was already half full when I arrived. Leo from finance, Marcus, and several people I didn't recognize. They all looked up when I entered, conversations pausing momentarily. "Ms. Martinez," Leo greeted me warmly. "Please, we've saved you a seat." He indicated a chair near the head of the table, traditionally reserved for someone of importance. I thanked him and took my seat, arranging my materials while trying to appear more confident than I felt. Gradually, the remaining executives filed in, each introducing themselves as they arrived. At precisely 9 a.m., my father entered, looking slightly harried but dressed impeccably in a suit I recognized as one of his favorites for important business meetings. He nodded to the assembled executives before his eyes found mine. "Good morning, everyone," he began, taking his seat at the head of the table. "As you know, we have a special guest joining us today. My daughter, Jessica Martinez, is considering taking a more active role in Martinez Hospitality Group, particularly in our marketing division." I kept my expression neutral, though internally I noted the careful phrasing, considering, rather than being forced into it. More active role, suggesting I'd had some role before, rather than being completely excluded. Dad was already controlling the narrative. "Jessica has an excellent background in marketing and has been reviewing our current strategies," he continued. "I've asked her to share some of her initial observations with us this morning." With that introduction, he turned the floor over to me, watching expectantly along with everyone else. It was a test, I realized, a chance to prove I belonged at this table despite my sudden appearance in a business I'd only learned about yesterday. I stood, moving to the screen where I could display the simple presentation I'd prepared in the early hours of the morning. "Thank you for the introduction," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "As my father mentioned, I've had the opportunity to review some of the resort's marketing materials and financial reports. But what's been most illuminating has been speaking directly with staff members about operational challenges that impact guest experience. For the next 15 minutes, I outlined the key issues I'd identified: the outdated booking system, the East Wing renovation needs, the potential for local business partnerships, and the inconsistent social media strategy. I presented specific recommendations for each, including cost projections and potential return on investment figures that Leo had helped me calculate the previous evening. "In conclusion," I said, "Sapphire Bay Resort has an excellent foundation and a dedicated staff. With targeted improvements to both operations and marketing approach, we could significantly enhance guest experience and increase both occupancy rates and average spending per stay." As I returned to my seat, the room remained silent for a moment. Then Leo began to applaud, followed quickly by the others. My father's expression was unreadable, but I thought I detected a hint of pride beneath his professional demeanor. "Thank you, Jessica," he said formally. "Your insights are remarkably thorough for someone who's been reviewing our operation for less than a day." "I had excellent sources," I replied, offering no further explanation for how I'd gathered my information so quickly. The meeting continued with updates from each department head. I listened attentively, asking questions and taking notes. It felt surreal to be sitting in this boardroom discussing a multi-million-dollar business that had apparently been intended for me all along, while just yesterday I'd been told to sleep in my car by my own family. As the meeting concluded, my father asked me to remain behind while the others filed out. When we were alone, he closed the door and turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite interpret. "That was impressive, Jessica," he said finally. "You've clearly inherited your mother's business acumen." "Thank you," I replied, unsure where the conversation was heading. He sighed heavily, suddenly looking less like the confident CEO and more like my dad. "I owe you an explanation. And an apology." "Both would be nice," I agreed, folding my arms. "After your mother died, I was lost. You know that. When I met Patricia, she represented a complete break from the grief. A new life, a fresh start." He paced the length of the conference room. "I convinced myself that you needed the same thing, a clean break from the past. When the opportunity to acquire Martinez Hospitality Group came up, it felt like a sign. Your mother and I had always talked about building a family business, something to pass on to you. But you never told me about it, I pointed out. Patricia, thought it would be better if you established your own career first, without feeling pressured by family obligation. At first, it made sense. You were just finishing your degree, finding your own path. I told myself I was respecting your independence. He stopped pacing and met my eyes directly. But then time passed, and the longer I waited to tell you, the more difficult it became to explain why I hadn't told you from the beginning. And Patricia? I prompted. Dad had the grace to look ashamed. She grew comfortable being the face of the Martinez family in the hospitality world. When I would mention bringing you into the business, she always had reasons why the timing wasn't right. So you let her make that decision. You let her gradually erase me from your life, from this business that literally bears our name. My voice remained calm, though internally I felt anything but calm. I did, he admitted, and I have no excuse, except that it was easier than confronting the reality that I was letting my new wife dictate my relationship with my only child. I was a coward, Jess. The frank admission caught me off guard. My father had always been many things, driven, sometimes distant, occasionally overprotective, but never had I considered him a coward. What changed? I asked. Why the emergency executive dinner last night? Why am I suddenly included in this meeting today? Because you stood up for yourself, he said simply. Because you reminded me of your mother, sitting there on that terrace, calmly dismantling the convenient fiction I'd been living in for 3 years. He shook his head ruefully. And because Marcus Chen called me after you left last night and told me in no uncertain terms that if I didn't recognize your potential contribution to this company, I was making the biggest mistake of my career. That surprised a laugh out of me. Marcus did that? He's not usually so forthright, but he was quite adamant. Said you had more natural instinct for this business than half the executives we've hired. Dad's expression softened. He said you reminded him of Elizabeth, and he was right. The mention of my mother again brought a tightness to my throat. So what happens now? Before Dad could answer, the conference room door burst open, and Patricia stormed in, Olivia trailing behind her. My stepmother's face was flushed with anger, her normally perfectly coiffed hair slightly disheveled as if she'd rushed to get ready. Robert, what is the meaning of this? She demanded, barely acknowledging my presence. I've just been informed by the spa manager that our complimentary couples massage has been canceled because of scheduling constraints. And Olivia was told the yacht excursion we booked is now unavailable. Dad straightened, his expression shifting from the openness of our conversation to something more guarded. Patricia, we're in the middle of a meeting. A meeting? With her? Patricia gestured dismissively toward me. Since when does Jessica attend business meetings? She has nothing to do with this resort. Actually, I interjected before Dad could respond. As a Martinez, I have everything to do with this resort. As today's board meeting has made clear, I'll be taking an active role in the company moving forward, particularly in marketing and guest experience management. Patricia's eyes widened, her gaze darting between me and my father. This is ridiculous. She knows nothing about this business. You can't seriously be considering— It's not up for consideration, Dad interrupted, his voice firmer than I'd heard him use with Patricia in years. Jessica will be joining Martinez Hospitality Group as Director of Marketing and Guest Experience, effective immediately. The decision has already been approved by the board. I stared at my father in shock. This was the first I'd heard of any official position, let alone board approval. Either he was bluffing, or decisions had been made without my knowledge. Again. Olivia, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly stepped forward. But what about our vacation? We're supposed to be celebrating Dad's birthday, not having business meetings. Her emphasis on Dad felt deliberate, a reminder of the family relationship she believed gave her priority. Your father's birthday celebration will continue as planned, I assured her, finding my voice. The dinner reservation for tonight at I. The Coral Room stands, but the spa appointments and yacht excursion were never confirmed. They were waitlisted due to existing bookings. This was a lie, of course. As far as I knew, those appointments had been confirmed. But after learning they'd planned to make me sleep in my car, I felt no guilt about the small deception. "This is outrageous," Patricia sputtered. "Robert, are you going to let her speak to us this way? After everything I've done for this family?" My father looked at his wife for a long moment, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. "What exactly have you done for our family, Patricia? You've systematically pushed my daughter away for 3 years. You suggested she sleep in her car at our own resort. You've used my ownership here to demand special treatment while keeping Jessica completely in the dark about the business her mother helped me build." Patricia's face drained of color. "I never—" "Please don't lie." Dad cut her off. "The staff talks. Marcus knows. I know. And now Jessica knows too." The conference room fell silent. Olivia looked between her mother and my father, uncertainty replacing her usual smug confidence. Patricia's expression hardened into something cold and calculating. "I see," she said finally. "So this is how it's going to be. You're choosing her over us." "I'm choosing to stop pretending," Dad corrected. "Jessica is my daughter and a Martinez. This company bears our name, and she has every right to be part of it. That doesn't change my commitment to you and Olivia, but it does mean the dynamic has to change." Patricia gathered her composure, straightening her shoulders. "We'll discuss this later, Robert. In private." With that, she turned and stalked out of the conference room, Olivia hurrying after her with one last confused glance over her shoulder. When they were gone, I turned to my father. Director of Marketing and Guest Experience? He had the grace to look sheepish. I may have gotten ahead of myself there. The position exists, and the board would approve your appointment in a heartbeat based on your presentation today. But I should have discussed it with you first. Yes, you should have, I agreed. I'm not sure I'm ready to just jump into an executive role in a company I didn't know existed until yesterday. Dad nodded. That's fair. What about a 3-month trial period? You continue at your current job in Tampa while consulting with us on specific projects. Get to know the business. See if it's something you want to pursue long-term. No pressure, no obligations. It was a reasonable proposal, one that acknowledged my need for independence while opening the door to future possibilities. I could work with that, I conceded. And Patricia? I added, voicing the question that hung between us. Dad sighed heavily. I meant what I said. The dynamic has to change. I've allowed her insecurities about her place in my life to dictate how I treat you, and that ends now. Whether or not you join the company, you're my daughter and a part of my life. It wasn't a complete resolution. Patricia and Olivia weren't suddenly going to welcome me with open arms. But it was a start. My father had finally acknowledged the problem and taken a stand, however tentative. As we left the conference room together, I felt a shift in our relationship, a rebalancing that had been long overdue. The path forward remained uncertain, filled with potential complications and difficult conversations. But for the first time in years, I felt like my father's daughter again, not an inconvenient reminder of his past life. Outside, the Florida Sea. Sun shone brilliantly over Sapphire Bay, the resort that now represented not just a family business I'd been excluded from, but a potential future I could choose to embrace. I had arrived less than 24 hours ago, expecting a tense family vacation where I'd be tolerated at best. Instead, I'd discovered not only a business connection I hadn't known existed, but also my own capacity to stand firm in the face of deliberate exclusion. They had suggested I sleep in my car, never suspecting that their casual cruelty would inadvertently open the door to my reclaiming both my place in my father's life and potentially my professional future. The irony wasn't lost on me as I walked through the lobby toward the beach, nodding to staff members who now greeted me with newfound respect. This vacation had turned out to be transformative, but not in any way Patricia could have anticipated when she'd tried to humiliate me at check-in. Sometimes, I reflected, being forced to sleep in the car is exactly the wake-up call you need. Facing Patricia across the dinner table that evening was an exercise in uncomfortable politeness. The Coral Room, Sapphire Bay's signature restaurant, was designed for intimate dining experiences, low lighting, ocean views, and tables spaced for privacy. Unfortunately, that meant no buffer against the frigid atmosphere between us. Dad had insisted on maintaining our dinner reservation, positioning it as both a birthday celebration and a family reconciliation attempt. His optimism was admirable, if misguided. Patricia hadn't spoken directly to me since the conference room confrontation, communicating only through pointed remarks to my father. "The sea bass is supposed to be excellent," Dad said brightly, trying once again to spark conversation. "The chef trained in Barcelona." "I know," I replied. "Diego mentioned the chef's traditional preparation methods when we talked last night." "Diego?" Olivia asked, breaking her sullen silence. "Who's Diego?" "Housekeeping supervisor," I explained. "We had dinner in the staff lounge." Patricia's eyebrows shot up. "You ate with the staff? In their quarters?" The disdain in her voice grated on me. "Yes, and they were lovely, incredibly knowledgeable about resort operations, which was helpful for my presentation this morning." "About that," Patricia set down her water glass with deliberate precision. "Robert, I still don't understand how Jessica is suddenly qualified for an executive position. She has what, 2 years of experience at a small marketing firm? Meanwhile, Olivia is pursuing her MBA and would be much better suited. Olivia is 19 and has never expressed interest in the hospitality industry," Dad interrupted, his patience visibly thinning. "And Jessica has 3 years of experience at a respected marketing agency that specializes in travel and tourism." I appreciated his defense, but I didn't need it. "My qualifications aren't actually your concern, Patricia. The board makes hiring decisions based on merit, not family relationships. As I'm sure you know." The barb landed. Patricia's mouth tightened into a thin line. Olivia looked confused, glancing between her mother and me, sensing tension but missing context. Our server arrived with appetizers, providing a momentary reprieve. I used the interruption to observe my stepsister more carefully. Olivia had always followed her mother's lead in our interactions, mirroring Patricia's dismissive attitude. But something seemed different tonight. She appeared less certain, watching her mother with a slightly furrowed brow. "So," Olivia said after the server departed, "you're really going to be working at the resort? Like, all the time?" "I'm considering a 3-month trial period," I clarified, "consulting on specific marketing projects while maintaining my current position in Tampa." "Oh." She picked at her appetizer. "I thought maybe you'd be moving to the corporate offices in Miami." The comment seemed innocuous, but something in her tone caught my attention. Was that relief in her voice? Did Olivia not want me near their Miami home? Before I could pursue the thought, Patricia cut in. "Miami headquarters would make more sense. The executive team is there, after all. No need for you to be underfoot at this property." "Patricia," Dad warned. "What?" "I'm simply pointing out that if Jessica is serious about this opportunity, she should be at headquarters, not micromanaging this particular resort. Unless there's another reason she wants to be here specifically." Patricia's gaze was calculating. "Perhaps a certain operations manager." "Marcus?" I laughed, genuinely caught off guard. "He's a colleague and he knew my mother professionally, that's all." "He canceled our spa appointments," Patricia said accusingly, "after your meeting with him." "I didn't ask him to do that," I replied honestly, though I couldn't help but feel a small flicker of satisfaction. Marcus had clearly made his own decision about how the owner's wife should be treated after her behavior. The tension was interrupted by a commotion at a nearby table. A guest was speaking angrily to a server, his voice rising above the restaurant's subdued atmosphere. I recognized the server as Elena, who had mentioned during staff dinner that she was new and still learning the extensive wine list. "This is unacceptable," the man was saying. "I specifically ordered the 2015 vintage, not the 2017. Don't you people know anything about wine? I want to speak to a manager immediately." Elena looked mortified, apologizing profusely while trying to take back the opened bottle. I glanced around for a floor manager, but didn't see one nearby. Without thinking, I stood up. "Excuse me," I said to my family, then made my way to the troubled table. "Good evening," I said, approaching with a professional smile. "I couldn't help overhearing there's an issue with your wine selection. Elena is one of our newest team members, still learning our extensive cellar. May I help resolve this situation?" The guest, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit, looked me up and down skeptically. "And you are?" "Jessica Martinez, Director of Guest Experience," I improvised, using the title Dad had proposed earlier. "I'd be happy to have our sommelier select an alternative vintage that would better complement your meal, with our compliments." The man hesitated, clearly caught between wanting to continue his complaint and being appeased by management attention. "The chef's tasting menu requires the proper wine pairing. The 2015 has notes of blackberry and cedar that the 2017 simply lacks." "You have a discerning palate," I acknowledged. "Our sommelier has recently acquired a limited quantity of the 2014, which has an even more pronounced cedar finish. It's not on the menu yet, but I'd be delighted to have him bring a bottle for your approval." This was a complete bluff. I knew nothing about the restaurant's wine inventory, but I was banking on the principle that difficult customers often respond to exclusivity and special treatment. The man's expression changed. "The 2014 would be acceptable." I nodded to Elena, who looked panicked at my improvisation. "Please ask Antoine to bring the Special Reserve 2014, I instructed, hoping the sommelier's name was actually Antoine. As Elena hurried away, I chatted briefly with the guest about the evening's menu, apologized once more for the mix-up, and wished him and his dining companion an excellent meal. By the time I returned to our table, Patricia was staring at me with open hostility. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" she demanded. "Resolving a guest issue," I replied, retaking my seat. "It's part of the role." "It most certainly is not," Patricia hissed. "Executive directors don't intervene with every minor complaint. They have managers for that. You're making a spectacle of yourself." Dad frowned. "I thought it was handled rather well, actually." Before Patricia could respond, Marcus appeared at our table, immaculately dressed in his evening suit. "Mr. Martinez, Mrs. Wilson Martinez, Ms. Wilson," he greeted them before turning to me. "Ms. Martinez, a moment of your time?" I excused myself and followed Marcus a short distance away. "Is there a problem?" "Not at all," he assured me. "Elena informed me of your intervention. Quick thinking with the 2014 vintage, we actually do have a few bottles in the reserve cellar. Antoine is handling it now." Relief washed over me. Thank goodness, I was completely improvising. "That's called instinct in this business," Marcus said with approval. "But I wanted to check if you're comfortable with staff approaching you with operational issues. You're still technically on vacation after all." The question gave me pause. I glanced back at our table, where Patricia was speaking intently to my father, her gestures animated. "I think my vacation ended the moment I found out about the family business," I admitted. "And honestly, I'd rather deal with wine complaints than family tension right now." Marcus nodded sympathetically. "Understood. In that case, would you mind if I sent the new hotel events coordinator to speak with you after dinner? Jade's developing the summer programming and could use marketing perspective." "I'd be happy to help," I agreed, surprised by how easily I was falling into a professional role I hadn't known existed 24 hours ago. When I returned to the table, our entrees had arrived. Dad looked moderately uncomfortable, while Patricia maintained a glacial silence. Only Olivia showed any interest in my return. "Did you really fix that guy's wine problem?" she asked, sounding genuinely curious rather than antagonistic for once. "I hope so," I said, picking up my fork. "The sommelier is handling it now." "Cool," she said. Then, seeming to remember her mother was watching, quickly resumed eating, without further comment. The remainder of dinner passed in uncomfortable conversation. Dad attempted to discuss safe topics, the weather, the beach conditions, a new film, while Patricia responded with minimal engagement. I focused on my excellent sea bass, too mentally exhausted to continually navigate Patricia's hostility. As dessert was served, a special birthday presentation for Dad, I noticed Olivia checking her phone repeatedly under the table, a secret smile playing at her lips. When she caught me watching, she quickly put the phone away, her expression closing off. Strange. In all our previous interactions, Olivia had never tried to hide anything from her mother. They operated as a unit, sharing private jokes and exclusionary glances. This secretive behavior was new. After dinner, Dad announced he was taking a walk along the beach. Patricia declined to join him, citing a headache, and Olivia mumbled something about meeting friends at the resort's teen lounge, though at 19, she was beyond the teen demographic. "I have a meeting with the events coordinator," I explained when Dad invited me to join his walk. "Marketing consultation. Rain check?" He looked disappointed but nodded. "Of course. Business first." As our awkward family dinner disbanded, I headed toward the executive offices to meet Jade. The night was still young, the resort's evening activities in full swing. Guests lounged in the outdoor bars, couples strolled along the illuminated pathways, and somewhere a live band was playing acoustic covers. The corridors leading to the offices were quieter, most of the administrative staff having departed for the day. I found Jade waiting in a small conference room, surrounded by poster boards and promotional materials. "Ms. Martinez, thank you so much for meeting me," she greeted enthusiastically. Jade was perhaps a few years younger than me, with a vibrant energy that immediately lifted my mood after the tense dinner. "Please, it's Jessica," I insisted, taking a seat. "Marcus mentioned you're working on summer programming?" For the next hour, Jade walked me through her proposed events calendar: local artist showcases, chef demonstrations, wildlife education programs for children, sunset yoga sessions. Her ideas were creative and well considered, though the promotional materials needed refinement. "You've developed a strong foundation," I told her truthfully. "I think with some targeted marketing adjustments, we could significantly increase guest participation." We were deep in discussion about social media strategy when my phone vibrated with a text from Sophia. "Emergency at the Marina Bar. Need your help ASAP." "I'm sorry," I told Jade, showing her the message. "I need to check this out. Can we continue tomorrow?" "Of course," she agreed readily. "This has been incredibly helpful already." I hurried through the resort to the Marina Bar, an open-air establishment overlooking the yacht docks. From a distance, I could see a small crowd gathered, voices raised. As I got closer, I recognized Olivia's voice, particularly strident, among them. "Do you have any idea who my father is?" she was demanding. "He owns this entire resort. You can't refuse to serve me." I quickened my pace, arriving to find Olivia facing off with Diego, who appeared to be filling in as a bartender. Sophia stood nearby, her expression relieved when she spotted me. "What's happening?" I asked quietly, pulling Sophia aside. "Your stepsister tried to order alcohol with a fake ID," Sophia explained under her breath. "Diego recognized her from when I introduced you at staff dinner, knew she was underage, and refused to serve her. She's making a scene, threatening to have him fired." Great. Just what this vacation needed. an entitled teenager throwing her weight around using our father's name. Her friends scattered when the confrontation started, Sophia added, nodding toward a group of young people hovering at a distance, clearly wanting to dissociate themselves from the drama. I approached the bar, where Olivia was now leaning across the counter, her face flushed with anger or embarrassment, possibly both. "Diego," I greeted calmly. "Olivia, is there a problem?" Olivia whirled toward me, her expression shifting from anger to mortification when she saw me. "This isn't your business, Jessica." "Actually, it is," I replied evenly, "both legally and professionally. Diego is following Florida law by not serving alcohol to minors, regardless of whose name is on their fake ID." Diego looked grateful for the backup but remained professionally neutral. "I offered to serve her any of our non-alcoholic specialty drinks, Ms. Martinez. On the house." "That was very appropriate," I affirmed. "Olivia, I think it's time to call it a night, don't you?" "You're not my mother," she snapped, though the fight was visibly draining from her. The audience of resort guests made her vulnerable in a way she wasn't accustomed to. Olivia was used to having the upper hand in our interactions, with Patricia backing her. Here, she was simply a teenager caught breaking rules. "No, I'm not," I agreed, "but I am trying to prevent you from creating a situation that would embarrass Dad on his birthday vacation, and from getting a good employee in trouble for doing his job correctly." That reached her. Whatever else I might think of Olivia, she did care about our father in her way. "Fine," she muttered. "Whatever. I'll walk you back to your room," I offered, not trusting her to go directly there without detouring to find her friends or another bar. As we left, I caught Diego's eye and mouthed, "Thank you for handling the situation professionally." He gave me a slight nod of acknowledgement. Olivia and I walked in silence through the tropical gardens that connected the marina to the main resort building. The night was humid, heavy with the scent of jasmine and salt air. Strings of lights illuminated the path, creating pockets of warm glow among the shadows. "Are you going to tell Dad?" Olivia finally asked, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard. I considered the question carefully. "That depends. Is this a regular occurrence? Fake IDs, trying to get served at bars?" She shrugged, trying for nonchalance but not quite achieving it. "It's college. Everyone does it." "Not everyone gets caught at their father's resort, using his name to threaten employees," I pointed out. Olivia had the grace to look ashamed. "I didn't mean to get that guy in trouble. I was just embarrassed when he called out my fake." "His name is Diego, and he was doing his job," I said firmly. "If you'd succeeded in getting him fired, he would have lost his income, his benefits, possibly his work visa. All because you wanted a margarita you could legally have in 2 years." Put that way, her behavior sounded petty and destructive. I could see the realization dawning on her face. "I didn't think about it like that," she admitted. "No, you didn't," I agreed. "And that's the problem, Olivia. You and your mother never seem to think about how your actions affect other people." She bristled at the comparison to Patricia. "I'm not like my mom." "Aren't you?" I challenged. "You've followed her lead in how you treat me since the day she married Dad. You were perfectly fine with me sleeping in my car during this vacation." "That was Mom's idea, not mine," Olivia protested. "She said the suite only had 2 bedrooms, and you probably wouldn't want to come anyway." I stopped walking, turning to face her directly. "And you believed that?" "Olivia, I've seen the floor. Plans. The oceanfront suites have 3 bedrooms. Your mother deliberately excluded me, and you went along with it without question." Her expression shifted from defensive to confused. "But Mom said—" "Your mother says a lot of things about me that aren't true," I interrupted. "And you've never bothered to verify any of it or form your own opinion." Olivia fell silent, seemingly processing this information. We resumed walking, the only sounds the distant crash of waves and the chirping of night insects. "Why does she hate you so much?" Olivia finally asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. The question caught me off guard. I don't think she hates me, I said carefully. I think she sees me as a threat to her position in Dad's life. I'm a connection to his past, to my mother, to a life that existed before you both came along. She's always weird about your mom, Olivia admitted. Gets super tense whenever anyone mentions her. Dad stopped keeping photos around because it upset her so much. That revelation hurt more than I expected. The idea of my father removing photos of my mother, erasing visible evidence of our family history to appease Patricia's insecurities, created a fresh wound. That's not healthy, I said after a moment. For any of you. My mother was a huge part of Dad's life for over 20 years. Pretending she never existed doesn't honor his past or help build an authentic future. We had reached the main building. Olivia paused before entering, turning to face me with an expression I'd never seen before. Uncertainty, perhaps even vulnerability. Do you hate us? She asked. Me and Mom. The question was so unexpected I took a moment to consider my answer. I don't hate you, Olivia. I don't even know you. Not really. We've never had a real conversation before tonight. As for your mother, I resent how she's come between Dad and me. I'm angry about how she's treated me. But hate requires more energy than I'm willing to spend on someone who's shown so little regard for my feelings. Olivia nodded slowly, absorbing my words. I'm sorry about the fake ID thing. And maybe other stuff too. It wasn't a comprehensive apology, but it felt like the first genuine interaction we'd ever had. Thank you. Try to stay out of trouble for the rest of the vacation, okay? Diego won't report tonight's incident, but not all staff would be so understanding. Okay, she agreed, then hesitated. Are you really going to work for Dad's company? I'm considering it, I said truthfully. It's complicated. Everything with adults is complicated, she sighed with the particular exasperation of someone on the cusp of adulthood but not quite there. Mom's going to freak out if you do. That's not my primary concern, I told her. I need to decide what's right for me professionally, regardless of Patricia's feelings. Olivia studied me with newfound interest. That's kind of badass, actually. I couldn't help but laugh. Prioritizing my own career over your mother's comfort? I suppose it is, in our particular family dynamic. We parted in the lobby, Olivia, heading to the elevators while I decided to check in with Sophia at the Marina bar to ensure everything had settled down after the incident. As I turned to leave, Olivia called after me. Jessica, thanks for not telling Dad about tonight. I nodded acknowledgement. Everyone deserves a second chance, Olivia. Just make better choices going forward. Walking back toward the marina, I reflected on our unexpected connection. One real conversation had revealed more complexity to Olivia than I'd seen in 3 years of family gatherings. She wasn't just Patricia's mini-me, but a young woman forming her own identity, potentially open to a different kind of relationship with me. The Marina bar had returned to its normal atmosphere when I arrived, the earlier drama apparently forgotten by the vacation-minded guests. Diego was mixing colorful cocktails, his movements efficient and practiced. Sophia sat at the end of the bar, waving when she spotted me. Crisis averted? She asked as I slid onto the stool beside her. For now, I confirmed. Thanks for texting me. How did you know? I was having after-shift drinks with some of the activities staff when your stepsister made her grand entrance, Sophia explained. Recognized her from your description and earlier sightings. When she started dropping the owner's name while waving a clearly fake ID, I thought you might want to intervene before it escalated. Good call, I said gratefully. We actually had something resembling a real conversation on the walk back. Diego approached, setting a pink drink with an umbrella garnish in front of me. On the house. The Martinez. Our special rum punch. I raised an eyebrow. There's a drink named after my family? Created it 3 months ago, Diego confirmed, with a grin. One of our most popular cocktails, though we can make you a virgin version if you prefer. The real thing is fine, I assured him, taking a sip. The drink was perfectly balanced, sweet, tart, with a hint of coconut and a definite kick from the rum. This is excellent. Thank you for handling Olivia professionally. He shrugged. Part of the job. Besides, teenagers trying fake IDs at resort bars isn't exactly uncommon. Usually they're not related to the owner, though. We chatted for a while longer as I enjoyed my namesake cocktail. Sophia filled me in on resort gossip, which executives were respected by staff, which guests were favorites, which amenities were most popular. Diego occasionally joined our conversation between serving other customers, adding his own perspectives. It struck me how comfortable I felt with the resort staff compared to the strained interaction with my own family at dinner. Here, conversations flowed naturally, laughter came easily, and I didn't feel the need to carefully measure every word for potential landmines. "You fit in here," Sophia observed, seeming to read my thoughts. "Like you've been part of the team for years, not hours." "It feels that way," I admitted. Which is strange, considering I didn't even know my father owned this place until yesterday morning. "Maybe it's in your blood," Diego suggested, pausing while mixing another drink. "Your mother was a legend in the hospitality industry. Everyone who worked with her says she had a natural gift for making both guests and staff feel valued." The comment warmed me, another unexpected connection to the mother I'd lost 5 years ago. "You knew about my mother?" "Required reading and hotel management courses," Diego explained. "Her case studies on staff retention and guest loyalty are still taught. Marcus mentioned she was your mother during staff orientation." I was continually discovering how my mother's legacy lived on in ways I'd never imagined, touching the careers of people who now worked at my father's resort. It felt like the universe was offering connections to her just when I needed them most. Around midnight, I finally headed back to the penthouse, pleasantly tired from the day's emotional roller coaster. The halls were quiet, most guests having retired for the night or moved to the late-night venues. As I rounded the corner to the private elevator, I nearly collided with Marcus, who was apparently leaving the executive offices. "Late night?" I asked, noting the files tucked under his arm. "Quarterly reports wait for no man," he replied with a rueful smile. "I heard there was a situation at the Marina Bar earlier." "Nothing serious," I assured him. "Olivia tried to use a fake ID, Diego handled it professionally, and I walked her back to her room. Crisis averted." Marcus nodded approvingly. "Efficient resolution. I appreciate your intervention. It protected both a valued staff member and your family's privacy." "I'm getting a crash course in crisis management this vacation," I said wryly. "Speaking of which," Marcus hesitated briefly, "your stepmother requested a meeting with me tomorrow morning, wanted to discuss proper protocols for family accommodations, according to her message." I couldn't help laughing. "Let me guess, she wants me evicted from the penthouse?" "Something along those lines, I imagine," he confirmed. I informed her that accommodations for the Martinez family are determined by corporate policy, not individual property management. "But I thought you should be aware." "Thank you for the heads up," I said sincerely, "and for holding the line. Patricia isn't accustomed to being denied." "Yes, I've gathered that from our previous interactions," Marcus said diplomatically. "She's persistent." "That's a very professional way of putting it," I acknowledged. We reached the private elevator, and an uncomfortable awareness settled between us. Marcus was, after all, an employee of my father's company, a company I might soon be joining in an executive capacity. The easy rapport we'd established suddenly felt complicated by potential professional implications. "Well, good night," I said, swiping my keycard for the elevator. "And thank you again for everything today. Your support made a difficult situation more manageable." "It was my pleasure," he replied formally, though his eyes conveyed something warmer. "Good night, Ms. Martinez." As the elevator doors closed between us, I leaned against the wall and exhaled slowly. This vacation had already transformed my understanding of family, career, and personal boundaries, and we still had 3 days to go. Morning sunlight streamed through the penthouse windows, painting golden paths across the polished floor. I'd been awake for hours, reviewing financial reports and property assessments Leo had sent over. Yesterday's revelations had ignited a curiosity about the business that bordered on obsession. If I was considering joining Martinez Hospitality Group, even on a trial basis, I needed to understand its operations inside and out. A gentle knock at the door interrupted my concentration. When I opened it, I found a resort staff member holding a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Chen thought you might appreciate breakfast while you work." The tray held fresh fruit, a vegetable frittata, artisan bread, and coffee prepared exactly how I preferred it, with almond milk and a hint of cinnamon. There was also a small note in precise handwriting. "Thought you might be reviewing the quarterly projections. Fuel for thought. MC." I thanked the staff member and brought the tray to the terrace, where the ocean breeze provided a perfect counterpoint to the morning heat. Marcus's thoughtfulness was both professional and personal in a way that felt natural rather than intrusive. My phone chimed with a text from Dad. "Morning meeting with developers delayed. Beach walk at 9?" I replied affirmatively, grateful for the opportunity to speak with him alone. Yesterday had been a whirlwind of revelations and confrontations, leaving little time for the deeper conversation we needed. At precisely 9, I met Dad on the private stretch of beach accessible only to guests staying in premium accommodations. He looked more relaxed than I'd seen him in years, dressed in casual shorts and a linen shirt rather than his usual business attire. "Sleep well?" he asked as we fell into step along the water's edge. "Between reviewing financial reports and processing everything that's happened?" "Not particularly," I admitted. "But the penthouse is beautiful." Dad nodded, seeming pleased. "Your mother helped design it, actually, before the renovation. The color scheme, the layout of the office space. That was all Elizabeth." "Another connection to Mom you never mentioned," I observed, not unkindly but directly. He sighed, bending to pick up a perfect shell and turning it over in his hands. "After she died, talking about her felt impossible." Patricia encouraged moving forward, creating new memories instead of dwelling on the past. At the time, it seemed like healthy advice. "For whom?" I asked. "It might have been easier for Patricia to enter a relationship where your past was erasable. But losing Mom and then being discouraged from even mentioning her? That wasn't healthy for me, Dad. Or for you." "I know that now," he acknowledged quietly. "I handled everything wrong, Jess. The grief, the remarriage, bringing Patricia and Olivia into our lives without proper boundaries. I was so focused on building a new family unit that I didn't protect what remained of our original one." We walked in silence for a moment, the gentle surf washing over our feet. Seagulls wheeled overhead, their cries mixing with the distant laughter of children building sandcastles. "Why didn't you tell me about the business?" I finally asked, the question that had been burning since yesterday morning. "Martinez Hospitality Group literally has our name on it. Did you think I wouldn't be interested?" "Just the opposite," Dad replied. "I knew you'd be perfect for it. Your marketing background, your mother's influence, your natural instinct for hospitality, all of it aligned perfectly. Too perfectly, maybe." "What does that mean?" He gazed out at the horizon, gathering his thoughts. "When the acquisition opportunity came up, it felt like fate. The kind of business your mother and I had always talked about building, available right when I was looking for a new direction after her death. But Patricia saw it differently." "Let me guess," I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "She didn't want me involved. She thought it would be better for you to establish your own career first, build your own reputation separate from family connections." Dad glanced at me. It wasn't entirely self-serving on her part. There was some logic to it. Perhaps, I conceded. But that should have been my choice to make, not hers. And certainly not something kept secret from me for 3 years. You're right, he agreed simply. I let Patricia's concerns override what I knew would be right for both you and the business. By the time I realized my mistake, too much time had passed to easily correct it. We reached a rocky outcropping that marked the boundary of the resort's property and turned to walk back. So where do we go from here? I asked. You've offered me a trial position, but I'm not sure I can trust that Patricia won't continue interfering. Dad stopped walking, turning to face me directly. I've spent the morning on calls with our corporate counsel and the board. Patricia will no longer have any role in company decisions. Her access to corporate resources, including the ability to direct staff here or at any property, has been formally rescinded. I stared at him, stunned by this unexpected development. You're serious? Deadly serious, he confirmed. Your insights yesterday, combined with what I've learned about Patricia's behavior towards staff here, made it clear that she's been misusing her connection to the company. That ends now. She's going to be furious, I pointed out. She already is, Dad admitted with a grimace. She received the official notification this morning. That's why I suggested a beach walk, to give her some time to process before we all interact again. For the first time since arriving at Sapphire Bay, I felt a genuine smile forming, not out of vindictiveness toward Patricia, but from the relief of seeing my father finally establish a boundary that protected both me and his business. Does this mean you want me to take the position? I asked. I want you to consider it carefully, he replied thoughtfully. Take the 3 months we discussed. Learn the business from every angle. Then decide if it's where you truly want to be. No pressure, no expectations, just opportunity. His phone buzzed, and he checked it with a frown. The developers have arrived early. I need to get back. Go ahead, I encouraged. I'm going to walk a bit longer. Dad hesitated, then pulled me into an unexpected hug. The kind we used to share before grief and remarriage had created distance between us. I'm proud of you, Jess. Your mother would be too. The simple words carried a weight of meaning, acknowledgement, of both what had been lost and what might still be rebuilt. I watched him walk back toward the resort, his figure gradually diminishing against the expansive white sand. Alone on the beach, I continued walking, processing the morning's developments. Patricia's corporate wings had been officially clipped, a significant step that demonstrated Dad's commitment to changing our family dynamic. But I harbored no illusions that she would accept this new arrangement gracefully. If anything, removing her official leverage might make her more determined to undermine me through personal channels. My thoughts were interrupted by the sight of a familiar figure ahead. Marcus, dressed casually in shorts and a t-shirt rather than his usual impeccable suit, supervising what appeared to be a beach cleanup initiative. Staff members and several guests were collecting debris in labeled bags, working systematically across the sand. "Morning beach patrol?" I called as I approached. Marcus turned, momentarily surprised to see me. "Ms. Martinez, good morning. This is our weekly ecosystem maintenance project. Guests receive resort credits for participating in environmental initiatives." "That's brilliant," I said, genuinely impressed. "Conservation and customer loyalty in one program." "It was your mother's concept, actually," he admitted. "From a case study she wrote about integrating sustainability with guest experience. We implemented it when I came on board." Yet another thread connecting my mother to this place I'd only just discovered. "Mind if I join?" He handed me a pair of gloves and a collection bag without hesitation. Staff and family participation is always welcome. For the next hour, I worked alongside resort employees and guests, collecting everything from plastic bottle caps to fishing line. Marcus moved through the group, equally attentive to the elderly couple discussing local bird species and the enthusiastic children competing to find the most colorful pieces of sea glass. His leadership style was understated but effective, guiding without dominating, acknowledging every contribution. "You're good at this," I observed when we eventually ended up side by side, tackling a section where the tide had deposited a tangle of seaweed and debris. "Environmental cleanup?" he asked with a hint of amusement. "Building community," I clarified. "Everyone here feels valued, whether they're a honeymooning couple or a housekeeping staff member. That doesn't happen accidentally." Marcus considered this as he carefully extracted a piece of plastic netting from the seaweed. "Perhaps it's because I don't see fundamental differences between them. Everyone here, guest or staff, deserves respect and appreciation for their role in the ecosystem of the resort." "My mother would have approved of that philosophy," I said, smiling at his choice of metaphor. "High praise," he acknowledged. "Your meeting with your father went well? I noticed you walking together earlier." "Surprisingly well," I confirmed. "He's officially restricted Patricia's access to company resources and decision-making." Marcus's eyebrows rose slightly, the most extreme reaction I'd seen from his usually composed demeanor. "That's a significant development. And potentially explosive," I added. "I haven't seen her yet this morning, but I imagine she's not taking it well." "I received a rather pointed email requesting the penthouse be reassigned to her and your father," Marcus admitted. "I redirected her to corporate policy regarding Martina's family accommodations." "Second attempt to get me moved to lesser quarters," I observed. "Or possibly my car again." "She's persistent," Marcus allowed diplomatically. As we finished our section of beach, the resort's head chef appeared with refreshments for the cleanup volunteers. Fresh fruit smoothies and breakfast wraps served on the beachfront deck. The casual interaction between guests and staff continued during this impromptu picnic, with conversations flowing naturally across typical social boundaries. I found myself drawn into a discussion with a retired marine biologist staying at the resort and 2 members of the landscaping staff about native coastal plants. The conversation was engaging and enlightening, highlighting another aspect of Sapphire Bay I hadn't anticipated: its ability to create genuine connections between diverse individuals. "This is the heart of hospitality," Marcus said quietly when he joined me as the gathering began to disperse. "Not the luxury amenities or gourmet dining, though those matter too. It's creating spaces where people feel both comfortable and enriched by their experiences." "I'm beginning to understand why my father acquired this place," I admitted. "It embodies what my mother always believed about the industry, that at its best, hospitality is about honoring both the guest and the environment they're experiencing." Marcus nodded, seemingly pleased by my observation. "Exactly. Though maintaining that balance requires constant attention. Speaking of which," he checked his watch, "I have a department head meeting in 20 minutes to review weekend staffing. And I should probably check in with Jade about those event materials we discussed last night," I said, suddenly aware of how quickly I'd fallen into a quasi-professional role at the resort. As we walked back toward the main building, a commotion near the pool area caught our attention. Patricia's voice carried clearly across the carefully manicured landscape, her tone sharp with indignation. "This is absolutely unacceptable. I've been coming to this cabana for 3 days. It's reserved for our family." Marcus and I exchanged glances before changing direction toward the disturbance. As we approached, I could see Patricia confronting a young staff member who looked both confused and distressed. Nearby, an older couple sat uncomfortably on lounge chairs, clearly the targets of Patricia's displeasure. "What seems to be the problem?" Marcus asked calmly as we reached the scene. Patricia turned, her expression darkening further when she saw us together. "These people are in our reserved cabana," she stated accusingly, "and your staff is doing nothing about it." The young attendant, his name tag read Tyler, looked relieved at Marcus's arrival. "Mrs. Wilson Martinez, as I explained, The premium cabanas operate on a first-come basis each morning unless specifically reserved through the system. There's no record of a reservation for today. That's ridiculous, Patricia snapped. We've used this exact cabana every morning since we arrived. Obviously, there's been a mistake in your system. I glanced at the couple who were gathering their belongings despite Tyler's assurances they could stay. The woman caught my eye with an apologetic smile. We don't want any trouble. We can certainly move. That won't be necessary, I said, firmly before turning to Patricia. The resort policy on cabanas is clearly stated in the welcome materials. First-come basis unless reserved. If you didn't make a reservation, then the cabana wasn't held for you. Patricia's eyes narrowed dangerously. I see Robert has spoken with you. Do you think this petty display of authority impresses anyone, Jessica? Taking away my access to basic resort amenities? Your access hasn't been revoked, I clarified, keeping my voice level. Your ability to override standard policies and mistreat staff has been. There's a difference. Marcus intervened smoothly. Mrs. Wilson Martinez, if you'd like to reserve a cabana for tomorrow, I'd be happy to arrange that personally. For today, we have an excellent cabana available on the eastern side with an even better ocean view. His professionalism seemed to momentarily diffuse Patricia's anger, though the look she gave me promised this confrontation was far from over. Fine. Tyler, please show me this alternative location. As Tyler led Patricia away, I turned to the couple, who had watched the exchange, with poorly concealed fascination. I apologize for the disruption to your morning. Please, enjoy your cabana. If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you, the woman said warmly. We've been coming to Sapphire Bay for years, and the service has always been exceptional. I'm glad to hear that, I replied sincerely. Your loyalty is appreciated. Once they were settled again, Marcus and I continued toward the main building. That won't be the last confrontation, he observed quietly. I know, I sighed. Patricia doesn't surrender territory easily, whether it's a poolside cabana or her perceived status within the family business. How will you handle it? His question wasn't challenging, but seemed genuinely interested in my approach. I considered for a moment. Consistently and professionally. Set clear boundaries without escalating conflicts. Protect the staff from her tantrums while maintaining the guest experience for everyone else. Marcus nodded approvingly. A sound strategy, though it may require considerable patience. Fortunately, I've had 3 years of practice managing Patricia's behavior, I said wryly, though usually I was accommodating it rather than confronting it. We parted ways in the lobby, Marcus heading to his meeting while I went in search of Jade to continue our marketing discussion. As I walked through the resort, I found myself paying closer attention to operational details I'd previously noticed. Only as a guest. Staff interactions, amenity arrangements, the subtle ways the property guided visitor experiences without seeming to direct them. Jade was in the marketing office, surrounded by even more design materials than the night before. Her energy remained infectious as she walked me through updated versions of her event proposals, incorporating suggestions I'd made during our previous conversation. These look excellent, I told her truthfully, reviewing the redesigned promotional materials. The emphasis on local partnerships really strengthens the concept. I incorporated your suggestion about featuring the backgrounds of visiting artists and chefs, she explained enthusiastically. It creates a stronger narrative for guests to connect with. We were deep in discussion about digital campaign strategies when Sophia appeared in the doorway, looking somewhat hesitant to interrupt. Sorry to disturb you, she said, but there's a situation you might want to address, Jessica. Something in her tone alerted me that this wasn't a minor issue. What's happened? Your stepsister is in the main restaurant having brunch with some friends. She's been uncomfortable with one of our servers. Sophia's careful phrasing suggested she was minimizing a potentially serious situation. I excused myself from Jade and followed Sophia down the corridor, What exactly does uncomfortable mean in this context? Sophia grimaced. Apparently, the server, Miguel, didn't bring her mimosa quickly enough. She made some comments about incompetent immigrants that were overheard by several guests. Miguel asked his supervisor to take over the table, but the damage was done. I closed my eyes briefly, embarrassment and anger washing over me in equal measure. How many guests overheard? At least 2 nearby tables. One couple asked to speak with management about it. This was exactly the kind of situation that could damage both guest experience and staff morale, and potentially the resort's reputation if it escalated to social media. Where's Marcus? Still in his department meeting. That's why I came. To find you. I appreciated Sophia's vote of confidence, but felt the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders. I'd spoken confidently to Marcus about setting boundaries with Patricia, but confronting Olivia in a public setting was more complicated. She wasn't just my stepsister in this context. She was the daughter of the owner, making inappropriate comments to staff who couldn't easily defend themselves. I'll handle it, I decided. Where's the couple who complained? Lounge area near the restaurant entrance. Older gentleman with a blue shirt, woman in a floral dress. Okay, I'll speak with them first, then address Olivia. Can you make sure Miguel knows we're taking this seriously? Sophia nodded, squeezing my arm supportively before heading toward the kitchen area. I found the couple exactly where Sophia had indicated, speaking quietly to each other with concerned expressions. Taking a deep breath, I approached their table. Excuse me, I began. I understand there was an incident that concerned you. I'm Jessica Martinez, Director of Guest Experience. May I join you for a moment? The woman looked relieved at my approach. Yes, please do. We were quite disturbed by what we overheard. That young server was nothing but professional, and the comments made were completely unacceptable. I agree entirely, I said firmly. That behavior doesn't reflect the values of Sapphire Bay Resort or the Martinez family. I'm addressing it immediately and wanted to personally apologize for any distress it caused you. The husband seemed slightly appeased but remained concerned. We've been coming here for years, and we've always appreciated the diverse staff. Everyone's always been treated with respect. But that young woman's comments were shocking. They're contrary to everything we stand for, I assured them. I hope you'll allow us to demonstrate that through our actions, not just words. Is there anything specific I can do to restore your confidence in us? The couple exchanged glances. Just make sure that young man knows not everyone thinks that way, the woman said finally. He seemed quite shaken by it. I'll speak with him personally, I promised. And thank you for bringing this to our attention rather than simply leaving with a negative impression. After ensuring they were satisfied with my response, I braced myself for the more difficult conversation ahead. Olivia sat at a corner table with 3 friends, laughing loudly and seemingly unaware of the disturbance she'd caused. As I approached, she spotted me, her expression immediately shifting to wariness. Olivia, may I speak with you for a moment? I kept my tone professional but firm. I'm having brunch with my friends, she protested. This won't take long, I insisted. Please. Reluctantly, she excused herself and followed me to a quiet alcove near the restaurant entrance. If this is about last night, it's not, I interrupted. It's about your comments to Miguel, your server. Her expression turned defensive. He took forever with our drinks, and he got Ashley's order wrong. That may be true, I acknowledged. But describing him as an incompetent immigrant was completely unacceptable. It was heard by other guests and has upset both them and the staff. I was just joking around, Olivia muttered, though she had the grace to look somewhat ashamed. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal, I countered firmly. Miguel is a valued employee who deserves respect. The guests who overheard were disturbed enough to speak with management. And beyond the immediate impact, comments like that damage the resort's reputation and contradict the inclusive environment this property strives to maintain. Olivia crossed her arms defensively. So what? You're going to tell Dad I'm a terrible person because I complained about slow service? No, I said carefully. I'm going to ask you to apologize to Miguel, and I'm going to suggest that we use this as an opportunity for you to better understand the hospitality business if you're going to be part of a family that owns resorts. Her brow furrowed in confusion. Apologize to the server? That's not what Patricia would do. I finished for her. Probably not. But it is what responsible adults do when they've said something hurtful and inappropriate. It's what people who understand this business do when they recognize that staff satisfaction directly impacts guest experience. Olivia seemed genuinely conflicted, glancing back at her friends who were watching our interaction with undisguised curiosity. This is humiliating, she muttered. More humiliating than being publicly demeaned for your ethnicity while trying to do your job professionally? I challenged gently. The question landed as intended. Olivia's defensive posture gradually softened as she considered it. Fine, she said finally. I'll apologize, but not with an audience. That's reasonable, I agreed. Sophia can arrange a private moment after your brunch. And Olivia? Thank you for being willing to make this right. As she returned to her friends, I felt a mixture of relief and cautious optimism. Yesterday's late-night conversation seemed to have created a small opening. Olivia was at least marginally more receptive to guidance than she had been previously. I found Sophia waiting near the kitchen entrance. Crisis managed? She asked. In progress, I replied. Olivia has agreed to apologize to Miguel privately after her brunch. Could you arrange that and make sure Miguel knows it's entirely his choice whether to accept? Absolutely, Sophia agreed. That's surprisingly mature of Olivia. Baby steps, I said with a small smile. She's not entirely Patricia's creation, it seems. As I turned to leave, I nearly collided with Marcus, who had apparently concluded his meeting. Handling guest situations already? He observed, having clearly witnessed at least part of my conversation with Olivia. Family situations that impact guests, I clarified. Olivia made an inappropriate comment to Miguel. It's being addressed. Marcus nodded approvingly. Sophia made the right call bringing it to your attention. Your approach was excellent, firm but not punitive. I'm learning as I go, I admitted. Though I'm not sure where managing racist comments from my teenage stepsister fits into the official job description. Under additional duties as required, Marcus suggested with the hint of a smile. The catch-all of every hospitality position. His attempt at levity was appreciated, helping to diffuse the tension of the morning's multiple confrontations. At this rate, I'll have handled every possible crisis before my 3-month trial period even begins. Accelerated training, Marcus observed as we walked together toward the lobby. Though I hope you're finding some time to actually enjoy the resort as a guest. It would be unfortunate if your introduction to Sapphire Bay was nothing but family drama and operational challenges. The comment reminded me that I was, technically, still on vacation, though it felt increasingly like a professional immersion program. I haven't exactly had time for poolside relaxation, I acknowledged. Perhaps a change of perspective would help, Marcus suggested. The sunset sail this evening is one of our signature experiences. It might offer a welcome reset after today's events. The invitation, if that's what it was, seemed to hover in a carefully maintained space between professional suggestion and personal interest. That sounds lovely, I replied, deliberately matching his neutral tone. Though I should probably check if Dad has any family plans first. Marcus nodded, his professional demeanor firmly back in place. Of course. The boat departs at 6:30 from the marina if it fits your schedule. As he excused himself to address a waiting staff member, I found myself contemplating the complex dynamics developing during this strange vacation. In less than 2 days, I'd discovered a family business I never knew existed, confronted long-standing issues with my father and stepfamily, and potentially found a professional path that honored my mother's legacy. And through it all, Marcus, Chen had been a steadying presence, professional yet supportive, maintaining appropriate boundaries while providing crucial guidance. Whether he would ultimately be a colleague, a mentor, or something else entirely remained to be seen. But his invitation to the sunset sail felt like an opportunity to step back from the intensity of the past 48 hours and simply experience the beauty of Sapphire Bay as it was meant to be enjoyed. With that thought in mind, I texted Dad to inquire about evening plans, determined to carve out at least a few hours of actual vacation amid the whirlwind of discovery and confrontation that had defined my stay thus far. The sunset sail was everything Marcus had promised. A breathtaking experience that momentarily lifted the weight of family drama from my shoulders. As Sapphire Bay's signature catamaran glided through crystal waters, I stood at the railing, watching golden light transform the horizon into a masterpiece of orange and pink hues. Beautiful, isn't it? I turned to find Marcus beside me, his usual formal attire replaced by casual linen pants and a light blue shirt that caught the color of the fading sky. In this setting, away from the resort's business operations, the careful distance he maintained seemed to soften. "It's incredible," I agreed. "I can see why this is a guest favorite." The catamaran accommodated about 20 passengers, a mix of honeymooners, families, and solo travelers. Staff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, while a guitarist played acoustic melodies that complemented the natural soundtrack of wind and waves. "The experience sells itself," Marcus observed. "Nature provides the spectacle. We just create the right context for guests to appreciate it fully." That seems to be the philosophy throughout Sapphire Bay, I noted. Working with natural elements rather than competing with them. Marcus nodded, pleased by my observation. "Your mother's influence again. She believed luxury wasn't about imposing artifice, but about enhancing authentic experiences. The original architect wanted a much more imposing structure, all glass, and sharp angles. Elizabeth convinced the previous owners to work with the natural landscape instead. And then Dad purchased it and named it after our family," I added, still processing the strangeness of this connection. "Martinez Hospitality Group's first acquisition," Marcus confirmed, "though the portfolio has expanded to 5 properties. Now!" I turned to him in surprise. 5? I thought Sapphire Bay was the only one." Marcus looked momentarily uncomfortable, realizing he'd revealed information I apparently didn't know. "I apologize. I assumed your father had briefed you on the full extent of the company during your discussions yesterday. Apparently, we haven't quite reached full disclosure yet," I said dryly. "What are the other properties?" As Marcus described the boutique hotel in Charleston, the mountain lodge in Colorado, the wine country resort in California, and the recently acquired property in Maui, I felt a renewed sense of disbelief. The business was substantially larger than I'd imagined. Not just a single resort, but a growing collection of distinctive luxury properties unified by my family name. "I can't believe he kept all of this from me," I said when Marcus finished his explanation. "One resort was shocking enough, but an entire hospitality group. If it helps, the expansion beyond Sapphire Bay has occurred primarily in the last 18 months, Marcus offered. "And your father has been quite deliberate about the company's growth, ensuring each property maintains the values and standards established here." The sun dipped lower, its bottom edge touching the horizon in a final blaze of glory. Around us, guests raised phones and cameras, trying to capture the uncapturable moment. The guitarist shifted to a gentler melody, creating a soundtrack for the day's graceful conclusion. "Despite everything," I admitted quietly, "I can understand why Dad fell in love with this place. It feels special." "It is," Marcus agreed, though admittedly I'm biased. "How did you end up here?" I asked, realizing I knew little about him beyond his professional competence and connection to my mother. He considered the question, gazing out at the darkening horizon. The expected career path after my hotel management degree was a major chain. Hilton, Marriott, something with a clear advancement trajectory. But I'd read your mother's case studies on boutique hospitality experiences and found them compelling. So you sought out smaller properties? Marcus nodded. I worked at independent resorts in the Caribbean and California before joining Sapphire Bay 3 years ago, shortly after your father's acquisition. When I learned Elizabeth Martinez's husband was the new owner, it felt like a sign that I was on the right path. Something in his tone suggested there was more to the story. And now? I prompted. A slight smile curved his lips. Now I have the opportunity to work with her daughter, who appears to share both her insight and her determination. The symmetry is satisfying. The compliment warmed me in a way I hadn't expected, creating a momentary connection that transcended our professional relationship. Before I could respond, a commotion from the other side of the boat drew our attention. "Is that your stepsister?" Marcus asked, nodding toward where Olivia stood arguing with one of the crew members. I sighed, my brief respite from family drama apparently over. I'd better go see what's happening. As I approached, I could hear Olivia's increasingly agitated voice. "I'm telling you, my mother was supposed to be on this cruise. She had a reservation." The staff member, Lisa, according to her name tag, maintained professional composure despite Olivia's rising volume. "I'm sorry, Ms. Wilson, but your mother's name isn't on our passenger list for this sailing. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding." "About the date?" "There's no misunderstanding," Olivia insisted. "She specifically told me to meet her here at 6:30. Someone screwed up." "What's going on?" I asked, joining them. Olivia turned to me with visible relief. "Jessica, Mom was supposed to be on this sunset cruise. We were meeting here to discuss something important, but they're saying she's not on the passenger list. Can you fix this?" The request for my intervention was new territory in our relationship. Olivia had never previously acknowledged I might have any authority or ability to help her. "Did Patricia confirm her reservation?" I asked Lisa. "We have no record of a Mrs. Wilson Martinez booking this evening's sail," Lisa replied apologetically. "And we departed at full capacity. Every spot was filled." I turned to Olivia. "When did she tell you to meet her here?" "This afternoon," Olivia said, her previous anger giving way to confusion. "She texted saying we needed to have a serious talk away from Dad, and to meet her on the sunset cruise at 6:30. Something about the situation felt off. Patricia was meticulous about arrangements, particularly when they involved her social standing. She wouldn't have mistaken a reservation for something as exclusive as the sunset sail. And the timing, telling Olivia to meet her just hours after her corporate access had been revoked, struck me as suspicious. "May I see the text?" I asked. Olivia hesitated, then pulled out her phone and showed me the message. "Meet me on the 6:30 sunset sail. We need to discuss Jessica's interference in the family business. Don't tell your father." The message confirmed my suspicions. This wasn't a scheduling error, it was deliberate manipulation. Patricia had sent Olivia to the boat knowing she, herself, wouldn't be there, creating confusion and potentially embarrassment for her daughter. "Olivia," I said carefully, "I don't think your mother ever intended to be on this cruise." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean? Why would she tell me to meet her if—" "Because she's upset about losing her corporate privileges," I explained gently. "This morning, Dad officially restricted her access to company resources. I think this is her way of expressing her frustration by causing disruption." Olivia's expression shifted from confusion to hurt as the implication sank in. "She used me to make a point? That's really messed up." Watching her process this revelation, I felt an unexpected surge of protectiveness. Despite our complicated history, Olivia was barely an adult, caught in Patricia's manipulative tactics, just as I had been. "I'm sorry," I said sincerely. "That wasn't fair to you." Olivia glanced around at the other passengers, some of whom were watching our interaction with poorly disguised interest. "This is humiliating," she murmured. "Only if you let it be," I countered. "You're here now. The sunset was spectacular, the food is excellent, and the cruise continues for another hour. Why not enjoy it?" She looked skeptical. "By myself? Everyone else is couples or families." "Not everyone," I pointed out. "I'm here, and I happen to know the resort's operations manager, who might be persuaded to share some insider stories about the property if we ask nicely." The suggestion of inclusion, of treating her as a partner rather than an adversary, visibly surprised Olivia. She hesitated, then gave a tentative nod. "Okay, but I'm still mad at Mom." "That's fair," I acknowledged. "And something we actually have in common." As we returned to where Marcus waited, I explained the situation briefly. To his credit, he adapted immediately, treating Olivia with the same professional courtesy he extended to valued guests. Before long, he was sharing the history of the catamaran, how it had been custom-built for the resort, featuring sustainable materials and design elements that minimized environmental impact while maximizing guest comfort. Gradually, Olivia relaxed, her earlier distress giving way to genuine interest. When Marcus mentioned the possibility of a junior management program for college students interested in hospitality careers, her attention noticeably sharpened. "Do you have to be a business major?" she asked. "I'm starting college in the fall, but I'm not sure what I want to study yet." "The program welcomes students from various academic backgrounds," Marcus assured her. "Hospitality touches multiple disciplines, business, yes, but also psychology, environmental science, culinary arts, even architecture and design." I watched this exchange with growing fascination. In all our previous interactions, Olivia had never expressed interest in any potential career path. Patricia typically spoke for her, emphasizing her social connections and popularity rather than academic or professional aspirations. As the catamaran returned to the marina, twilight settling over Sapphire Bay in a cloak of deep purple and silver, Olivia turned to me with unexpected directness. "Do you think Dad would let me do the internship program, even after everything that's happened?" The question revealed a vulnerability I hadn't previously recognized. Her awareness of her own and Patricia's behavior, and uncertainty about how it might affect her future opportunities. "I think Dad would be thrilled," I said honestly. "He wants both of us to find our own paths, even if they eventually lead to the family business." "Both of us," she repeated thoughtfully, "not just you." "The Martinez Hospitality Group has room for different talents," I assured her. "If you're genuinely interested in learning the business, I'm sure there's a place for you." As we disembarked, Olivia's phone chimed with incoming messages. Patricia, no doubt, wondering why her scheme hadn't generated the expected drama. Olivia glanced at the screen, then deliberately silenced her phone and put it away. "I should probably talk to Mom," she said reluctantly, "but I'm not ready yet." "That's perfectly reasonable," I told her. "Take some time to process how you feel about what happened tonight." She nodded, hesitating before adding, "Thanks for, not making it worse. You could have." It was as close to an acknowledgement of our changing dynamic as she'd ever offered. "We're family, Olivia, in a complicated, messy way that neither of us chose. But we don't have to be enemies." With a half smile and a wave to Marcus, she headed toward the main resort building, her posture suggesting a young woman contemplating previously unconsidered possibilities. Marcus and I walked more slowly along the marina, the evening air still warm but gentled by an ocean breeze. "That was well handled," he observed. "Both the crisis intervention and the relationship building afterward. I'm learning that family relationships and guest relations require similar skills," I said wryly. Clear communication, boundary setting, and occasional crisis management. The foundation of successful hospitality, Marcus agreed with a smile. Though family usually requires more sustained effort. We paused at the juncture where our paths would diverge. Him toward the executive offices to complete end-of-day reports. Me toward the main building to potentially deal with Patricia's inevitable reaction to her failed manipulation. "Thank you for suggesting the sunset sail," I said sincerely. Despite the unexpected family drama, it was exactly what I needed. The resort has a way of providing what guests need, even when they don't realize they need it, Marcus replied. Another element of your mother's philosophy, anticipating needs rather than simply responding to requests. His continued references to my mother created a sense of connection to her that I hadn't expected to find at Sapphire Bay, a continuation of her legacy through the business principles she'd championed and the professionals she'd influenced. "I'm beginning to understand why Dad named the company after our family," I admitted. "It's not just about ownership, it's about values and vision. Mom's vision, carried forward." Marcus nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "Exactly. And now potentially your vision as well, should you choose to accept the role he's offered." The question of whether to join Martinez Hospitality Group remained complex, despite the growing appeal of the opportunity. My life in Tampa, my apartment, my job, my established routine, felt increasingly distant, as if belonging to someone else entirely. Yet the prospect of working alongside my father, potentially in close proximity to Patricia's continuing hostility, presented obvious challenges. "Still processing that decision," I told him. "Though this crash course in resort operations has been illuminating. Take the time you need," Marcus advised. "The opportunity will remain open." As we parted ways, I found myself contemplating how dramatically my life had changed in just 2 days. From being told to sleep in my car, to discovering my rightful place in a family business I hadn't known existed. From enduring Patricia's dismissive treatment, to setting boundaries that my father finally seemed willing to enforce. The confrontation with Patricia regarding her manipulation of Olivia still loomed ahead, but I approached it with newfound confidence. This vacation had transformed not just my understanding of my family and potential career path, but my sense of self, my willingness to claim space rather than accommodate others' unreasonable demands. When I reached the lobby, I found Dad waiting near the concierge desk, his expression a mixture of concern and determination. "There you are," he said, clearly relieved. "Patricia's looking for you. She's not happy." "I imagine not," I replied calmly. "She arranged for Olivia to be stranded on the Sunset Cruise as some sort of power play, but it backfired. Olivia and I actually had a pleasant evening discussing the junior management program." Dad's eyebrows rose in surprise. "You and Olivia? Getting along?" "Don't sound so shocked," I said with a smile. "It turns out when Patricia isn't actively encouraging her to treat me like an interloper, Olivia's capable of civil conversation. She might even be interested in learning about the family business." "That would be unexpected," Dad admitted. "But welcome." A commotion near the elevators drew our attention. Patricia was approaching, her expression thunderous, Olivia trailing, reluctantly behind her. "Robert, I need to speak with you immediately," Patricia demanded, barely acknowledging my presence. "Privately." "Actually," Dad said firmly, "if this concerns Jessica or company matters, we should discuss it together, as a family." Patricia's eyes narrowed at this united front. "Fine. Your daughter has undermined my position at this resort, turned my own daughter against me, and made me look like a fool in front of the staff. I want her gone, from this vacation and from any involvement in the business." "That's not your decision to make," Dad replied, his tone gentle but unyielding. "Jessica is my daughter and a Martinez. She has every right to be here and to consider a role in the company that bears our name." "A company that I helped you build," Patricia protested. I've been by your side for 3 years, hosting clients, attending industry events, representing our brand. As my wife, Dad clarified, not as an executive or owner. There's a distinction that I should have made clearer from the beginning. Olivia stepped forward, her expression uncharacteristically determined. Mom, why did you tell me to meet you on the sunset cruise when you knew you wouldn't be there? Patricia faltered momentarily before regaining composure. I simply got the time wrong, Olivia. It was a misunderstanding. No, it wasn't, Olivia contradicted, showing me her phone screen. You sent another text 5 minutes after I boarded, asking if Jessica was making a scene yet. You wanted me to cause problems with her on the cruise. The evidence of such calculated manipulation silenced Patricia momentarily. Dad looked between his wife and stepdaughter, realization dawning on his face. That's enough, he said quietly. Patricia, this behavior needs to stop. Using Olivia to create conflict, attempting to embarrass Jessica, misrepresenting your role in the company. None of it is acceptable. So you're choosing them over me, Patricia accused, her voice rising. After everything I've done to help, you move past Elizabeth's death to create a new family? I'm not choosing anyone over anyone else, Dad replied steadily. I'm establishing appropriate boundaries that should have been in place from the beginning. Jessica is my daughter. Olivia is your daughter. They're both family, and neither should be manipulated or excluded to satisfy your need for control. Patricia turned to me, her anger finding its most familiar target. This is your doing. 3 years of careful work, undone in 2 days because you couldn't accept your place. My place, I repeated calmly, is as a Martinez, with all that entails. I didn't ask for this revelation, Patricia. I came on vacation expecting to be treated like family, only to be told to sleep in my car at a resort my father owns. Everything that's happened since has been the natural consequence of that decision. Something in my composed response seemed to deflate Patricia's anger, replacing it with a cold calculation I recognized from previous confrontations. This isn't over, she said finally. Robert, we need to discuss this privately, now. Dad hesitated, glancing between Patricia's demanding expression and my carefully neutral one. Go ahead, I encouraged him, but remember what we talked about on the beach this morning. He nodded, understanding my reference to maintaining boundaries. As he and Patricia moved toward a quiet corner of the lobby, Olivia remained behind, looking uncertain. Are you okay? I asked her. She shrugged, trying for nonchalance but not quite achieving it. I'm used to Mom's intensity, but using me to try to embarrass you, that was new and not cool. No, it wasn't, I agreed. You deserved better. Olivia glanced toward where her mother was gesturing emphatically to my father, her voice low but clearly agitated. Do you think they'll work this out? Dad and Mom? The question revealed her underlying concern that this power struggle might fracture her family structure. Despite our complicated relationship, I couldn't help but empathize with her worry. That's up to them, I said honestly. But whatever happens between them doesn't change your place in Dad's life. You're still his stepdaughter, and he cares about you. And what about us? She asked suddenly. You and me? Are we just going to pretend to get along for Dad's sake, or... I think we've moved beyond pretending, I told her. Tonight on the boat was real, wasn't it? We're not going to become best friends overnight, but maybe we can be family in more than just name. Olivia considered this, then nodded. I'd like to learn more about the junior management program, if that's okay. More than okay, I assured her. We can talk to Marcus about it tomorrow. As Olivia went to join her mother and my father, I felt a sense of resolution beginning to form. The vacation that had started with humiliation was transforming into something unexpectedly meaningful. A redefinition of family bonds, a potential new career path, and a reclamation of my place in my father's life. 1 year later, I stood on The terrace of my office at Martinez Hospitality Group's Miami headquarters, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in hues of orange and gold. The view wasn't quite as spectacular as Sapphire Bay's ocean panorama, but it held its own distinctive beauty. The transition from marketing specialist at a mid-sized Tampa agency to chief marketing officer of a growing hospitality group had been both challenging and rewarding. The 3-month trial period Dad had proposed had quickly evolved into a permanent position as I discovered an unexpected passion for the business my mother had helped shape and my father had built. A knock at my door interrupted my sunset appreciation. "Come in," I called. Olivia entered, looking professional in a tailored blazer and slacks, her preferred attire since starting the junior management program. College and part-time work at the company had matured her considerably, the entitled teenager gradually replaced by a young woman finding her own path. "The Maui property reports just came in," she announced, handing me a tablet. "Occupancy numbers for the soft opening exceeded projections." "Excellent," I replied, scanning the data. "The local partnership strategy is paying off. Marcus will be pleased." "He already is," Olivia confirmed. "I just got off a call with him. He said the guest feedback on cultural authenticity is particularly strong." The mention of Marcus brought a smile to my face. Our professional relationship had evolved alongside my role in the company, the careful distance gradually giving way to a deeper connection. We were taking things slowly, mindful of corporate dynamics, but the potential for something significant was undeniable. "Dad wants to know if you're joining us for dinner," Olivia continued. "He's got reservations at that new place on Brickell." "I'll be there," I assured her. "Tell him to order that ceviche he keeps talking about." As Olivia left to deliver the message, I returned my attention to the sunset, reflecting on how completely my life had transformed since that fateful check-in at Sapphire Bay. Patricia and Dad had ultimately separated, her inability to accept the new family dynamics proving insurmountable. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago, relatively amicable given the circumstances. Patricia had received a generous settlement, but no ownership stake in Martinez Hospitality Group, a boundary Dad had finally maintained despite her protests. The initial suggestion that I sleep in my car, intended as a cruel exclusion, had instead opened the door to discovering my rightful place in both the family business and my father's life. The humiliation Patricia had planned had backfired spectacularly, leading to professional fulfillment I couldn't have imagined, and family connections I'd nearly given up hope of reclaiming. I thought of Marcus's words from that first sunset sail. "The resort has a way of providing what guests need, even when they don't realize they need it." In my case, what I'd needed was the catalyst to stop accommodating others' unreasonable demands and start claiming the space that had always rightfully been mine. They'd made me sleep in my car, or tried to, never suspecting that their cruelty would ultimately lead me to discover who really owned the resort. Not just my father with his name on the deed, but me, with my inherited vision and newfound determination to create something meaningful from what had once been broken. As the last rays of sunset faded into twilight, I closed my laptop and prepared to join my father and stepsister for dinner. The family we'd become wasn't the one any of us had originally envisioned, but it was real and resilient, strengthened rather than destroyed by the truth that had emerged during that transformative vacation at Sapphire Bay Resort. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.